until we are live because he can't hear us. Hey, good morning, Mike. Dave?
Hi, Mike. Good morning, Mike. Metaphysical Mike. How's everything?
Yeah, well, welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. It is Friday. It's Friday, July 25th. Yeah? July 25th. I didn't put it
25th,
up
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put it up on the post. Okay. All right, no worries. July 25th, yep, and welcome to the weekend, I guess. Don't be too lazy at work today. You've still got a lot of work to do before you hit the weekend. So get your work done before getting off onto the weekend, okay?
Yeah.
I know, Mike, you don't work. I know. Well, you do work when there's school term on, and I do know you do a lot of work, other work, right?
I gotta get one of Mike's canes. I keep forgetting about that.
My knees get worse every year. My ankles get worse every year. And he's head off for the summer, you see, ready to make all those canes. My ankles get worse every year. My knees get worse every year. But I'm not sure, I've never really been sure about how canes help me. They seem more an obstacle than an assistance.
You have to learn how to use them. That's the problem. Most people use them the wrong way.
Yeah, I accept that. Most people probably do use them the wrong way, and I'm trying to use them the wrong way.
I use them sometimes to help when my knees are hurting, and also the second reason I use them is to beat people I don't like.
Yeah, but you use the hook end of the cane for that, don't you?
No, well, I have a problem with hook canes because I remember my auditions, my music auditions, and when a big cane came out and yanked me off stage, I've always been traumatized by
that. Yeah, but that was a shepherd's crook.
Yes. Well, in any case, the Hulkster is dead.
I heard that yesterday. Three people dying in 1 week.
It was the third. Well, Ozzy was one.
Ozzy was one. Hulk Hogan was the other. And the other one was a black man whose name went in. And somebody said, "Oh, 3 great heroes dead." And they mentioned the name of the third person. And I'm like, who's he?
Well, we're a first-class news station, aren't we? We can give you the 2 out of 3. So we can give you 66% of those people.
That's a good batting average. It's a good batting average, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I would say I don't know who the black guy is you're talking about, the artist or whoever it is, but it has been a whole generational thing. Ozzy Osbourne's out and the Hulkster is out, and those were 2 prominent people in American culture in a big way. Well, Western culture, because Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah. Both of them were entertainers, but both of them sort of identified aspects of the Western culture. Now, the Hulkster, I've never saw him wrestle live, but I did see most of the other guys wrestle once in Welland. It was Andre the Giant. What?
I was never into wrestling. I did a bit of wrestling at school. I was pretty good at it, but most of the professional wrestling that was on the TV, I thought was mainly fake.
Well, I was a high school wrestler, and they changed the rules. They went from NCAA, which was more of a fight, to Olympic, which was for pussies. In my view, there's too many restrictions on what you can do to your opponent. Where U.S. NCAA wrestling was a good old-fashioned fight with rules, and when they changed from NCAA to Olympic, it took away a lot of my moves, including my including my sort of signature move, which was the double reverse eye gouge. For some reason, they didn't allow that anymore.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got. So we've got. So we know Ozzy Osbourne, right? He's a good jazz singer and musician. Chuck Mangione died at 84.
Chuck Mangione died?
Mangione, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
This week?
This week, yes.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. Connie Francis died at 87 this week.
She was famous.
July 18th. But I didn't. China Walker died at 32 on July 8th.
Oh, well, she was a pretty interesting woman. She was, I think the one you're talking about there was a very muscular woman, if I remember.
Yeah, she's yeah. That's probably a fair way of putting it. Yep.
I don't know what she was famous for, other than being an extraordinarily strong woman. But I'm not even sure I got the right person. But Chuck Mangione was a flugelhornist exceptional. Flugelhorn is something in between, sort of in between a trombone and a trumpet. Well, it's a larger trumpet basically. It's just it would be comparable to a viola versus a violin. So if you think of somebody playing the violin and the viola, it's a larger
this is
trumpet basically.
This is the gentleman I'm talking about. Okay, that was on the one on yesterday. Malcolm Jamal Warner.
Who the hell is he?
He's an actor. Yeah, no, exactly. That was exactly who I
you're talking about the guy that was in the Cosby Show.
You could be.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he died unexpectedly in his 50s, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was an actor on the Cosby Show, but I never watched the damn thing anyway. I thought it was
I watched it a long time ago, but which is a long time ago. So there we go. You know, that's probably why I don't recognize who the hell he is, right?
But Hulk Hogan is very important culturally. He was the hero in professional wrestling. He is the guy that's supposed to have had the ethics. He was the good guy. He was always the good guy.
Brienne just put it up. Malcolm Warner, the Huxtable from Cosby Show.
Yeah,
Thank you, Brienne.
I don't remember the show very much, because Bill Cosby has been sort of denounced. I don't know if the show is very popular anymore. Bill Cosby seemed to be some kind of predator. I don't know what truth there is all in that. I think he got absolved of a lot of the things he was accused of. But anyway, Hulk Hogan, I'll get back to Hulk Hogan. Like, he was, the good guy, the guy that the American macho guy that exemplified American values.
He played in a number of films, often where he was. Well, one time he was himself, but he was playing the enraged father or uncle or something like that, whose daughter, niece or whatever had been kidnapped, and he went to rescue them. Then he played the same type of role as an ex-army soldier or something.
Yeah, I think he first became famous outside of the wrestling ring when he played the part in Rocky II or something. They had Rocky was supposed to do a sort of a charity fight with a wrestler versus a boxer, and Hulk Hogan was the wrestler, and his name was Thunder Lips. because he had all these women around him, kind of thing. So in that particular case, he played a bad guy. But if you listen to Hulk Hogan, I think Joe Rogan's got a few an interview with him. Very interesting how the whole wrestling thing worked. It was anyway. He was a big proponent of Trump. I bet you he regretted that near the end, but he was up there and he gave a big speech, tore off his shirt,
as only Hulk Hogan could.
Yeah. So he was anyway. He was an icon of American culture. Very, very entertaining. He was the good guy personified.
Yeah, I love the guy. I didn't know he was a Trump supporter, but anyway, hey.
Oh, in a big way, he went around and supported Trump. I'm not so sure if he got paid to do it like Beyonce did, and whatever else the other entertainers were on the Democrat side. But anyway, he endorsed Trump and in a big way, and that helped Trump because professional wrestling appeals to Trump supporters.
Okay. Whatever. I'm not gonna complain here. You got a right to like whatever you like, right?
Yeah, I watched professional wrestling a lot after Hulk Hogan made it sort of a huge thing, and I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed the drama, and having been a wrestler, I knew that it had nothing to do with wrestling at all. It was all performance.
Yeah,
and
most of this was to drive bets, and a lot of the time, the people who won were not necessarily the people who should have won.
No, they weren't real wrestlers. The only real wrestler that I knew that was in the professional wrestling, the WWF or whatever it was the Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik was a real wrestler. I think he was Olympic grade wrestler from Iran, and he escaped from Iran. So when he was the Iron Sheik, he was not at all an Arab. He was an Iranian, and I saw him and his tag team partner usually was a Russian. So they always saluted the Russian flag or whatever else when they played it. Get the whole crowd all burned up and mad. So the Iron Sheik was an excellent bad guy, and Hulk said he was a great guy. He was a real wrestler. He was the real deal. And Hulk Hogan said that for sure. He says he himself had never done any wrestling or anything, but the Iron Sheik was the real deal. Another guy that was kind of the real deal was Jesse the Body Ventura. He had been a Navy SEAL, so he really did know how to fight.
Well, it's the same thing. The same thing was true with professional wrestling in Britain. There was no such thing as proper wrestling. It was all a put-up job.
Oh yeah. It was just
the funny thing was that housewives used to love this stuff. It was the most popular daytime television was the wrestling.
Oh, they used to have my father told me when he was a young man, they used to have wrestling all the time in Maple Leaf Gardens, and him and his friends would scan the crowd and get behind old ladies, and because the old ladies would always cheer for the good guy, so they would get behind the old ladies and start cheering for the bad guy, and the old ladies get really mad at them, turn around and hit them with their purses.
Well, there you go. The first and last commentary on Talking Niagara about wrestling or fake wrestling.
Yeah. So it was entertainment. As a matter of fact, during Hulk Hogan's time, and he was even asked about this, that wrestling was governed by sports the sports federations, and that was a big problem for them because sports are real and wrestling isn't. Way back when wrestling was real, but the difference between wrestling and boxing back in the time, say around 1900 to 1920 in that area, or maybe up to 1930, is that wrestling really would cripple a guy. In other words, if you had real professional wrestling, the guy that lost the fight or even the guy that won the fight may not be able to fight again for many months afterwards because it was you really did get hurt. Your joints get pulled out, and so your joints or your tendons and all that would get stretched. So very early on in professional wrestling, they started faking it just for the crowd because it was deadly for the fighters. So early on, they changed to a more entertainment, and so then thereafter, I think it's just about 20 or 30 years ago or so, they removed it from the sports regulations and just turned it over to entertainment, and that was a big plus for for professional wrestling because they didn't have to go through this regulation of sports that it wasn't. So they went completely entertainment, which it was at that particular time.
All right. Okay, West Nile disease. West Nile disease has been found in mosquitoes in Niagara. They were testing in Welland, and this is where they found it. So, basically, all Niagara residents are encouraged to take precautions to risk being bitten by mosquitoes that could potentially expose them to West Nile.
There you have it. You have your public service announcement from Talking Niagara, the same Talking Niagara that can only give you 2/3 of the notable people that died in a week.
I know we managed to get them all out.
Yeah, we had to do massive research to do it though.
Yeah.
Like we're really prepared.
No. We got look. Brianna gave us it at the same time as I gave it. In fact, she beat me to it. Right there, we go.
Thank you. Brianna is now our research. Now Brianna is now our research department,
and I'm sure she'll thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Brianna.
But you'll have to pay her.
Well, she can get double what I get paid.
There you go. That's a positive. Right. Okay, so let's move on. France is going to be recognizing the Palestinian state today.
Finally. The very first G7 country to recognize Palestine. This is long overdue. I know this is an attempt by Macron to put some more pressure on Israel. Israel rejects it, says it's an homage to Hamas. Oddly not, because Macron has specified that they want Hamas out. They want a rebuilding of Palestine. This is the worst possible thing for Netanyahu because the conditions France has laid out, the Hamas has got to go. Good governance has to come, but the Palestinian people have to own and conduct their own affairs. This was delivered to Mahmoud
Abbas.
Abbas, sorry, I just slipped my name. So Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority. Now, this at a time when Mahmoud Abbas is in the West Bank, and there is a huge amount of settler violence against the Palestinians.
Yeah,
and
I was going to ask where Mahmoud Abbas was because I was wondering whether he was in hiding in the West somewhere.
He's in Ramallah. They haven't touched him yet. Well, he's getting close to 90 years old. So he's not very popular among the Palestinians, probably because he hasn't got a whole lot of power. He can make pronouncements and say things, but he doesn't. He really has very little power. And in any case,
and he's more the diplomat. He's not commander in chief, so to speak. He's more a diplomat than anything else.
Well, yes, he's kind of like the reasonable governing official. Remember, the Palestinian Authority got kicked out of Gaza by Hamas back in 2007.
Yeah.
Hamas was created with the help of Israel. This is the great ironies that live in the Middle East. Hamas was an Islamic organization that was competition with the Palestinian Authority. So the Palestinian Authority does not like Hamas, and the Palestinian Authority is a secular government. But Israel helped Hamas get off the ground because they wanted to divide and conquer. So they fed Hamas, and they allowed payments to go to Hamas through Qatar to make it stronger so that they could divide the Palestinian people. It worked. In 2007, 44% of the Palestinians voted for Hamas, or like it was a close vote between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. Hamas edged out the Palestinian Authority and threw them out of the Gaza Strip, and thereafter solidified their government and never allowed another election.
Yeah, but let's follow this up. The Netanyahu posted recently that we strongly condemn Macron's decision to recognize Palestinian state next to Tel Aviv in the wake of the October 7th massacre. A Palestinian state in these conditions would be a launch pad to annihilate Israel, not to live in peace beside it. Let's be clear, Palestinians do not seek a state alongside Israel. They seek a state instead of Israel. That's Netanyahu.
Well, that could be reversed because the greater Israel plans of the Zionists include Gaza. They include the West Bank. When David Ben-Gurion created Israel, he was the first leader. He permitted 20% of the population to be Palestinian. The Likud government under Benjamin Netanyahu, who wants to reduce that amount. And they want to kick out, remember, Palestinians, there was a huge amount of Palestinian Christians, which are never spoken of hardly at all. And right now, in any case, that's a big lie, because the greater Israel plans were to include Gaza and Palestine, or in the West Bank. He doesn't want any of that to happen. As a matter of fact, because they helped Hamas get created as a tool to offset the power of the Palestinian Authority.
I was pointing out Netanyahu's words because, of course, he's going to oppose what France wants to do.
If there was one Palestinian living in Gaza left, Netanyahu and France said, we recognize that person as a representative of the Palestinian people, Netanyahu would kill that person. Netanyahu is a war criminal par excellence. He has these weirdo Rama ideology underneath. He happens to be anyway. So I celebrate France. I tip my hat to France. I think it's too late. Basically, I think it's too late. The West has allowed Israel to become extraordinarily aggressive against the Palestinians. The West has allowed more than a third of the West Bank to be controlled by Israel, and the Palestinians pushed out of there, pushed off their farms that have been there for 1,000 years. The real irony in all this is that though most of those Palestinians have DNA connections with the Israelis. The idea that the Palestinians were probably Jews long ago that converted to Islam. And that is the real problem I see. Anyway, that like one of the problems. But the problem here is nobody has really go ahead.
I was going to say, so currently 140 of the 193 member states of the United Nations recognize the state of Palestine.
I don't think it really matters much because the expulsion that is happening in Gaza will continue. The Palestinian diaspora is all over the Arab world, basically even in the West. But there is huge amounts of Palestinians that got thrown off their land when Israel was created. They live in Lebanon, Syria, a huge amount of them live in Jordan, Egypt. There's no place for these people to go now. And they think that they're just going to keep smashing to pieces everything they have, so force them to leave to go somewhere. They don't know where. But I think Macron has done a really good thing here. It may be too little too late. I'm very embarrassed that my own country of Canada has hid in the shadows, said little words here and there. Weak, jelly-backed old Canada. I don't know. I wish that Carney would come up and do the same thing. We know that Trudeau was just stupid with all of this, and I think that's a mild criticism of him. He said he thinks Zionism was good. Idiot.
UK has not recognized a Palestinian state, but UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he's going to be holding an emergency call with French and German leaders today to discuss what can be done urgently to stop the killing.
They won't be able to do anything. This is a big show. France has finally done something. But until the United States pulls the plug, right now, you remember that character? You remember Under the Thunderdome or whatever it was called, that Mad Max movie? There was a little midget in it called Master, and he had this big, strong guy that he used to call Master Blaster. So the little guy had all the brains, and he controlled the huge guy who had all the muscle, Master Blaster. And that's exactly what's happening in the West. The master is the little Netanyahu riding on the back of the big Trump guy. And the big Trump guy is doing all the big smash up and grab. Well, it didn't matter if it was Trump, it would be any president of the United States. So that's basically what's happened. And we saw what AOC did. Like, she wouldn't vote for cancellation of weapons to Israel. If that's supposed to be the progressive voice of the world, jelly-backed out of a simple vote, a simple message to the Israelis, then there's not much hope for the United States coming on board.
Yeah, and it was a vote that they were going to lose anyway. So she could have voted against that amendment quite happily, without any impact.
No, she's a coward.
Okay, one other thing here. I noticed UK Prime Minister is not Keir Starmer. He is Sir Keir Starmer. And apparently he was knighted because of he was former chief prosecutor, and he was knighted for that work.
Well, hooray for Keir Starmer.
Yeah, I don't know when the knighthood occurred, but interesting. All right, anything else about Palestine in that?
Only that I tip my hat to Macron. He shows he's the only one with a spine. He's not enough of a spine, if you ask me, the West, but the West has been unbelievable. Like, this same thing happened in Germany. and all the West. Do you remember when Germany was rising to power, and all the outrages they was committing against its own people, throwing people in concentration camps, killing them, doing all kinds of mean and brutal things. Britain and France and all them just turned their back on all that and tried to be apologetics for it.
Yeah.
Say, as long as we don't poke the bear, they were not going to hurt us. Well, guess what? They ended up having to have a world war.
Yeah.
And that is because they were yellow. And if they keep being yellow with this thing there, this blood is on them.
Mike says France will be called anti-Semitic.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah. But they don't understand what the word Semitism means.
Semitic is the anti-Semitic term came up in about in the 1800s. I think.
But they don't understand what the term means if they're going to call France that.
Why?
Because anti-Semitic includes Israel.
No. We had this discussion before. Yeah. The whole world knows anti-Semitic means anti-Jewish. This happens to be because the term was first coined in Europe, where they're sort of the Semites that did live in Europe were Jews. Yeah, technically speaking, anti-Semitic would include Arabs, but we know that in Armenians and a few others. But in the current use of the word, yes, they'll be called anti-Semitic for sure because they will be thought to be anti-Jewish.
Yeah. And I think we can leave it at that point, right? Moving on. So the Niagara Regional Police arrested 526 people for impaired driving, but they've decided they're no longer going to name and shame people. I think that's a good thing that they're not naming and shaming.
I don't know why they did that in the first place.
Yeah, it was wrong anyway, because you have the right, because it fails to recognize that when it comes down to the facing charges, you have the right to your defense. And the Crown has to prove every aspect of their case. So if just because they arrested somebody doesn't mean to say they did all the paperwork right to get that charge, get the conviction.
Yes. But it also, what they wanted to do is humiliate people and show that other people could be humiliated if you got pulled over on a ride. They felt the humiliation factor would be part of what a deterrent. I think that was wrong thinking. Of course, it's wrong thinking. You don't humiliate people like that. You don't put them out there. Look, your neighbor was a drinker and driver. You could besmirch them or whatever.
Well,
it has an effect. And also remember too, let's say you being a paralegal got their name in there. How would that affect your business then?
Yeah.
You're that guy I saw in the newspaper.
Yeah. It could seriously impact your business. It doesn't actually, irrespective of me being a paralegal, if I was running a local restaurant, it could negatively affect my business.
Well, yeah, my point was, of course, not specifically legal, but anybody. What about a union president got nailed?
Absolutely.
What if anybody? What about a soccer mom? You know what I mean? Maybe she had that kind of thing. What about somebody that went for a meeting? Let's say they went to a bar for a meeting. Let's say Toastmasters. Let's say, and because we used to meet at the Legion, so we'd have a beer after the meeting. So what if you just had a couple too many, and all you need is two, and you 2 or 3, and you started to drive home, got pulled over,
Yeah.
And
And
now your
to be
name is up
honest,
there. The president of Toastmasters is a drunk.
yeah, and to be quite honest, you know, leaving the Legion wouldn't be hard to get pulled over, because when I went to the Toastmasters meeting in the Legion, every night when I left, there was always cops in the car park.
Yeah. So it was wrong to try to humiliate people. Anytime you do something like that, anytime you damage a person's reputation or something like that, yeah, it's not like they're a pedophile. If they're a pedophile, yeah, you put their name in the paper to protect other children. You know, this is a pedophile. Look out for this guy. You know, if he's if he's assaulted women or assaulted anybody, yeah, you put the name in the paper. But this is this was wrong-headed thinking. But what they're going to do, apparently in the article, is remain with the data. So they're going to publish the data. You know, man 57 caught at at such and such a place, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, yeah, but that is news, though. That is news, and that gives you an idea of the age groups, the locations. If you're coming out of the Legion and you say, you know, you see 7 people got pulled over on Spring Street, you know that they're probably coming from the Legion.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the other question that I have is this 526? There's no statistical information in what I can see of this article. Is this up or down on last year? That always one big thing that concerns me.
What was that? Hit me again.
Is this statistic up or down on last year?
I think it's up. I think that's why they put it there. It's similar to what it was last year, I believe. In any case, it is wrong-headed to humiliate people like that, to damage them. They used to do that with Johns, guys who got. They try to humiliate people who use prostitutes. And if you're, I don't know, you might not have been in town back then, but they would publish the names of people that got caught with prostitutes. Usually it was a sting event where they would put one of the policewoman out there that looked good, and she would sit where the prostitutes were, and they would bust these guys. But they would put their names in the paper, and what they found is guys were committing suicide afterwards. Yeah. That they had been so humiliated in society that they committed humanity. I mean, these are guys that are just looking to get laid, and they were put up there as major criminals, and they found people were committing suicides. Their careers were ruined by this. Marriages were ruined. It had a hugely detrimental effect, and so they stopped doing it happily.
Yeah. Unfortunately, last year in 2023, there's no actual precise figures, but Copilot estimates that it was above 500.
Yeah, I think it's around the same. The fact of the matter is the numbers haven't gone down. And that's one of the reasons why they're pulling this humiliation tactic out. They hope that by putting names in the paper, it will humiliate people. It will scare other people to be humiliated. I don't want to be humiliated. That's why I won't drink and drive. But they really missed the boat because it did not work. And that's why they're pulling it. And I feel that's a problem because it was not a moral decision. It was a decision based on the effectiveness of humiliating people.
Yeah.
And humiliating people did not work. So they're not working. Not the fact that it was wrong morally at all. Anyway, what else do we got?
Yeah, and the fact that drunk driving has not gone down doesn't surprise me. It's an unfortunate part of our life, I guess. So CFB is basically saying that CFIB, which is Confederation of Independent Businesses, is saying that Canada's economy is we expect to see negative growth amid these Trump tariffs.
Yeah. I have it somewhere here.
It's in B&M Blomberg. It's a Confederation of Independent.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, I got it right here. Yeah.
Confederation of Independent Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, CFIB, is actually an independent organization. We actually are a member of it at Invictus Legal.
Okay, so they'll take anyone then.
No, they're small business, basically up to about 150 employees, that type of business. So.
Yeah, it says here, right? It says here the advocacy group representing Canadian owners of small and mid-sized businesses released a report on Thursday. So basically, what it's telling us, what we already know, that the tariff situation and the uncertainty of it is affecting small businesses and mid-sized businesses detrimental.
Well, the reason I gave you this was basically because this is we talked about Stellantis yesterday, right? We talked about the fact that they're saying it cost them 300 billion yesterday, 300 million yesterday. Was it billion or million? It cost them a lot.
Yeah, it was huge. 300 billion, I think it was.
Billion,
it wouldn't be 300 billion. It would be 300 million.
Yeah.
So anyway, it says here, what we found out with this new quarterly update is the economy, yes, is going to contract in the second and third quarter, according to our forecast model, says Simon Goodrow, CFIB's chief economist and vice president of research, told Bloomberg in a Thursday interview. It is, however, a bit less of a dark picture than we might have expected at the beginning of the year. Let's say it's early 2025, when we were looking at the upcoming year and all the talks about the trade war.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as bad as they thought, but
yeah, they've been thinking it would have been worse, but it's still what we're facing is a contracting Canadian economy.
Largely due to the uncertainty, though. Of course, we're going to get hits by the tariffs. The tariffs are going to affect the economy of Canada in a measurable way, but what is really problematic, basically, I would think this is for all businesses, small or large, is they don't know which way to go. Now, in this article, I read it earlier, and it said that a lot of the smaller domestic businesses are shifting towards domestic markets, where they're trying to find domestic markets to replace their American markets, at least in the short term, while they try to figure out what's going to happen. Yeah, we probably won't get any real answers August 1st, because we know what Trump does. But him and his negotiators have finally come down with something very firm with the 15% tariff they're charging Japan. They came up with a deal with Japan and set the overall tariffs at 15%, which is an indicator that the other countries around the world might be able to get away with a 15% tariff. Now, the problem that I see, I think that the U.S. has to be able to understand how much the tariff is going to affect them, because it's going to be their consumers who pay it. Well, what is the capacity of the American consumer that will not affect the economy of the country that badly? Yeah, you know that they try to figure out how much taxes a consumer could pay without affecting the economy detrimentally. How much of the tariff tax can they pay without affecting the economy too detrimentally? Yeah,
I think a 10 or 15% tariff is probably the amount that wouldn't detrimentally affect the economy.
Yes, well,
it'll have some impact on the economy, but typically, if the American consumer is paying 10 or 15% more for the product at the counter, whatever the product is, whether it's the cell phone or the orange, that's probably an amount that they kind of would go, well, I hate it, but.
Yeah, but they can still buy it.
Yeah.
Now, 15% is 6 times what the tariff is in the United States right now. The United States tariffs are usually about 2.5%. If the bottom, the baseline was 10%, well, that would be 4 times the amount of money that is.
Oh, I grant that. I grant that. Right. I was talking purely as you asked a question about what maybe consumers could afford.
Was just now they seem to have the indications are that the American government thinks that the American consumer can pay 15% and not be detrimental, because they come to that number 15%. I think there's reasons behind that. I think there's pressures for them to mop up a lot of these trade disputes. I think that probably the EU is going to get a 15%. Maybe Canada will get a 15%. But no matter what it is, the number one thing we have to have is certainty.
Yeah.
If it's 15%, we can live with it. But if it's the U.S. purpose to make the force companies from other countries to locate into the United States, they would keep the tariffs very high. But we see with Japan, they were trying to force Japanese to build their cars in the United States, which they do. But the ones that are being exported from Japan into the United States will have a 15% tariff on them now, which is tolerable for the American consumer who loves Japanese cars and for the Japanese. Yeah, so they have struck a middle ground. But now the problem here, of course, is it's affecting domestic car production. And another article we have here tells us, well, you talked about Stellantis, but another article here today talks about GM and they're shrinking.
Well, no, that was actually part of this article. We talked before about Stellantis. I gave you GM being hit by tariffs. Yeah. So GM profits are tumbling, or Q2 profits tumble for both GM and Stellantis. We talked about Stellantis yesterday. I put this in because I found the same was true for General Motors.
Yeah, so not telling us anything we don't know.
Yeah,
in the Stellantis
this is what we would have predicted. This is what we would have predicted on February the 1st, right? Let's be blunt about it.
Yes, and it was predicted all the way around. However, in the Stellantis article, it referred to other automakers, and the one you talked about, the one that you put in there, it also talks about Stellantis. It refers to Stellantis in the article. Anyway,
Stellantis is in an odd position because half its vehicles are actually made in the United States, with Jeep and Dodge and Ram and other things. They're all purely American made, and they export to the European market, if anything. Alfa Romeo is about the only other Stellantis vehicle that comes from Europe into well, I suppose Fiat as well. And they don't own Fiat actually. The
Fiat and Renault are together, aren't they? Fiat
Renault. Fiat. This Stellantis owns DAF, which you probably never heard of. There's a major truck manufacturer, but they make European trucks and they make cars as well. They make tiny cars and big trucks. Weird, but still. And apart from that, realistically, there's not, Renault and Citroen do not have a presence in North America. So Stellantis brands.
Oh yeah, in the article we talked about Stellantis. It listed all the brands it had. That article the other day had a list of all the brands.
Oh, Fiat is in there. Okay, Fiat and Maserati are in there. Okay, it's got Opel, Peugeot, Vauxhall, Opel, Peugeot, Vauxhall, Fiat, Citroen, Alfa Romeo, and Arbath, which you probably nobody in North America has ever heard of, and DS, which is Citroen.
Yeah. Now, if you so back to the domestic problem, domestic producers, they're having difficulties with the tariffs. We found, I think it was the spokesperson for, I'm not so sure what company, I think it was GM. When asked what the American government could do to help the domestic producer, he flat out said, drop the tariffs on car parts.
Yeah.
Right. Now they have, like, GM has done, or no, it was Ford has done some, I can't remember. I think it was GM was done something. They're going to bring manufacturing from Mexico into Kentucky or something like that. So they're moving a plant. But the fact is, it's the parts and what the parts are made of. The tariff situation is so complicated that if it has Canadian aluminum, it has copper from Chile in it, and it has, other things. Let's say it has the aluminum is the casting, and the wiring is Chilean. So how do you then put a price on that little motor that you've made in the United States? So it gets really complicated. It adds a lot to the government. They're supposed to shrink the government. That's one of the big things. But when you put these tariffs on, you have to increase the size of government in a big way, because there are more tariffs, there are more rules, there are all that, and so you have to hire people to do their, like, to investigate and charge and all this other things. So that my big issue here is, has the United States in their calculations try to determine that sweet spot where the tariffs will not affect the American economy so bad? Yeah. Because of course, bringing all this stuff in from all, let's say they have a flat tax of all the whole world at 15%. So what you've done then is you've raised the price 5 times, because they're already paying a 2.5% tariff. So now you're paying 15% tariff. Can the American industry and consumer afford that? Yeah.
And of course, you were talking about Ford. It's not just Ford. For example, VW, Ford is changing what it's doing, shifting its assembly. Now they're looking at they've swapping out plants all over the place as to what they're doing. But also notice that VW are also on the decline.
All the car manufacturers, and sometimes it had the tariffs were only part of it. For instance, with Ford, we have an article there about Ford. So of course you think tariffs were the problems. No, in this particular case, their stocks fall because the investors are not convinced that Ford has done enough to improve their quality issues. So Ford cars overall
too much
are not performing well. The quality of them
too much have found on the road dead.
Yes. There's a couple of acronyms which I cannot use because they have swear words in them. But it depends on the Ford too. For instance, I had Crown Vics and a Grand Marquis. Love those cars. There was a 302 engine that was bulletproof. You do ordinary everyday maintenance on them, and the thing will last forever. So I had 2 Crown Vics and a Grand Marquis. I had 3 boys. I had a family, and it was an excellent car.
Yeah, they're
Now,
essentially the same vehicle, aren't they?
yeah, they are. They're just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are the same car. It's just Grand Marquis is a bit of an upgrade.
Well, it's just got nicer polish on the outside.
Basically, yeah.
And leather chairs leather seats rather than cloth ones.
Yes. So basically, like, it depends on your model. So when you go look for cars, every car company has a few stinkers in it.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with Ford is they get too many stinkers in it, and they have too many product recalls. They had $800 billion worth of recall, or $1 million worth of recall quality issues. And that in particular is the reason why the investors are not excited about Ford and why it's lost stock. When Ford presented, tried to improve its quality starting back in 2020, it did a number of things, and the investors are not convinced that they have done enough, and that is why the stock fell. So tariff, in this particular thing, tariff is actually another issue related to it, but it's the quality concerns that they're worried about.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Royal Bank of Canada. Actually, we were talking about the Freedom Convoy yesterday. Royal Bank has actually shut down Freedom Convoy lawyers' count over risk concerns because she actually bought some Bitcoin.
It really has nothing at all to do with the Freedom Convoy, though. Nothing at all.
No, but it is kind of a bit of an oddity. Why would you shut down somebody's account because they have transferred some money to purchase Bitcoin?
Well, why would you report this particular person when this has obviously happened to other people too?
I don't know whether it's happened to other people too. Have they actually singled her out because she happens to be a Freedom Convoy lawyer?
I think it just opened the eyes of the press. There was a notable lawyer that was positive of the convoy. In fact, she had, now it sends this message. It says Eva Chipiuk, a lawyer known for her involvement in the Freedom Convoy and vocal criticism of the Canadian institutions, has been blindsided by a Royal Canadian. It has nothing to do with that. But the fact is that it leads off with a paragraph like that, leads you to believe that because part of the reason was because she was a vocal critic of Canadian institutions.
That actually is the weird thing about it. Yeah.
Involvement. So it is. I have real issues with an article like this. Because it starts off with that paragraph as if it implies that the Royal Bank is coming down on her because of her involvement with the convoy.
And
it really does.
The reality is because she bought Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what's the point? My point is this is lousy journalism. It stinks. It stinks. Many people because of that lead off paragraph. Yeah. It really implies that it has something to do with the fact that she supported the Freedom Convoy and was a vocal critic of Canadian institutions.
Yeah. And hey, I'm wondering what there's nothing illegal about buying Bitcoin.
Well, that's another thing. But there is even a little conversation included in this article. And she basically is saying, I should have access to my money. RBC doesn't like it because of her purchase of Bitcoin, which they think is a volatile asset. So they don't want to support her bank. She doesn't want to support her. In other words, basically, they don't want to lend her money. They don't want to conduct business for her because they feel that she is a risk because of the involvement in Bitcoin. That's it. So, I mean, you're not going to get an article here. Dave Wheeler, RBC kicks Dave Wheeler out of their bank because he bought Bitcoin. But if it's a lawyer that supported Freedom Convoy, yeah, you're going to get your name in the paper.
You wouldn't be the last person to buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, right, or something like that. I'm just throwing it in the air. Plenty of people do, right?
So this is lousy journalism. It implies that because she was against Canadian institutions, it paints the very wrong picture here. It gives you the idea, okay, this is a lawyer that doesn't like Canada institutions, and the RBC is going to kick her out. This has nothing to do with it. She could be an axe murderer. RBC wouldn't care. RBC worries about the bottom line. So you could be a pedophile axe murderer, and if your account's stable and you have good business sense, RBC wouldn't care at all. So RBC doesn't care that she was involved in the protests and supporting the protests or against government. Now here,
Mike is saying that Thailand and Cambodia are at war.
Yes, yeah, we could talk about that briefly, because this particular article is basically just somebody bought Bitcoin. RBC as a banking institution is very nervous about it, so they discontinued business with her because they are afraid of fraud, and they're afraid also of losing money. They don't want us to lend her money. But yes, Cambodia, this is very, since I've been to both those countries. I was in Cambodia, I was in Thailand, I was in Laos, I was in Vietnam. I love all those countries. This is, now a problem here is Cambodia and Thailand have had a historic problem between their borders. It was drawn up by the French when the French left Indochina. Thailand remained. Thailand is kind of like Ethiopia. It was Thailand was the Asian
never
country
really
that
conquered.
Never got.
It had
colonized.
some outside influence, but not a great deal.
Yes. The King and I, of course, is a famous story about that.
Exactly. There's a story.
So France owned Indochina, and as they were getting booted out, they came across with the border. It was never being agreed upon by either Cambodia or Thailand. Thailand wants more of it. Now this is a border area that's been contentious. Cambodia is an extremely poor country. Cambodia has been done. Like when I was in Cambodia, I talked to, there was a guy that was selling me a bus ticket. And so I sat in his office. They have all kinds of these little nooks everywhere where you can buy a bus ticket or a plane ticket or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I sat down and talked to him about the Cambodian politics. At that time, they were much more worried about the Vietnamese. The Vietnamese and the corrupt government in Cambodia. But this was a cultural one between Thailand and Cambodia, and it's unusual because the cultures are extremely similar, the religions are extremely similar, the people on both sides of that divide are very similar. Unfortunately, a number of people have died.
Yeah, my brother actually lives in Thailand. I don't know where, but he's been living there for more than 20 years.
Sure, it's a lot cheaper to live there. I talked to all kinds of Brits, Canadians, and Aussies that live in what used to be Indochina, basically. And I remember talking to a Brit, and I think it was a Canadian guy too. It's just cheaper to live there.
Yeah,
and you have a very high quality of life.
I wish he would go back to UK and settle his affairs, and he can come back then he can go back again to Thailand.
You heard it first on Talking Niagara. Come home, brother.
No, he needs to go settle his affairs. I don't need to be in touch with him. He needs to settle his affairs.
In any case, this is a very bad outcome. This has happened before, though. This flares up from time to time. But the Thai military is much more sophisticated than Cambodian. I
I
can
would
tell you
think so.
Cambodia is a very, very poor country. It has been destroyed by the Khmer Rouge before, and the Vietnamese, and the war.
Well, we
Uh,
can
the
do
United
some
States bombed the crap out of it.
yeah, we can do some research over the weekend. Yeah, not to mention, of course, the Khmer Rouge.
Yeah, so what we don't need, we have flare-ups all over the place happening. We have them between India and China. We have them against Pakistan and India. We have the different sectarian problems in the Middle East. It's just one thing after another.
Yeah,
We don't need another one. I think we should the international community should jump on this as fast as possible and limit it as fast as possible. About a dozen or so people, maybe more, have died. They're doing really strange things by putting up landmines again.
yeah,
And that's killing people. So if you just wander off the path, you're going to blow up. This has to stop. And a lot of it has to do with the turmoil of Thai government right now. There's issues in the Thai government, and this might be a distraction that they use. I don't know. But the faster it ends, the better.
yeah.
We don't need another flare up in the world.
Yeah.
We can certainly settle this one.
Yeah. All right. And I think we can kind of call it a day at that point.
Oh, I will say, though, that the city of Siem Reap, where the Temple of Angkor Wat is, means victory over the Thais, or victory over Siam. And that tells you how far back that goes. That town is called Victory Over Thailand because the Thai armies came into Cambodia, I don't know, 300 years ago or something, and were routed by the Cambodian forces. So the whole city is actually named Victory Over Siam. So there is a historical thing there.
Yeah. All right. So we better say goodbye to everybody.
Without further ado, I bid you do not forget Gaza. It's getting to be the nightmare of nightmares. It was already a nightmare. It's become a nightmare of nightmares. And the fact that France has finally done something, and our jelly-backed, spineless Canadian attitude towards Palestine has to change too. I hope we're the second one that recognizes Palestine in any effort at all to stop what's going on.
Yeah.